Hello, I'm Jana, and welcome back to the Crafty Corner. This week over at the Funkie Junkie Inspiration Avenue, instead of a prompt, we were given a question. And this question is a hard one. The question is, what is your favorite Tim Holtz product? Well, the easy answer to that is anything that I'm using at the moment. But the product I probably could not live without would be Distress Ink. Distress Ink started the whole line of Tim Holtz products, so I think it is only fitting that we pay tribute to Distress Inks today. I'm going to be going through some of the most well-known Distress Ink techniques that I've learned from a variety of Tim Holtz demos over the course of the last 5 years. So if you'd like to see exactly which supplies I'm going to be using, go ahead and pause here. All right, let's head over to the Crafty Corner. Today is going to be all about Distress Ink, but before we dive into wonderful inky fun, we're first going to put down the new Tim Holtz mat. This is the perfect surface to get inky on. Not only does it react well with the ink, it covers more of our work area and will allow us a larger field for inky play. All right, now the very first thing that we're going to be looking at is going to be basic ink blending. Now for ink blending, I like to work on mixed media cardstock. This is a great foundational base and it allows for a smooth blend, and we can still add water drips after. So the colors that I'm going to be using first will include Uncharted Mariner, Vintage Photo, and Crackling Campfire. So I've got some blending foam off to the side, and we're just going to blend quickly onto the mixed media cardstock. So taking some dome foam, we're just going to start blending right on here. Okay, it's a pretty good start. Next, we will go in with some of the Vintage Photo. Now, I'm going in at a slight angle just so that I'm not creating too much drag. I want to get a nice smooth transition between colors. So we're just working a bit at an angle. All right, it's pretty good. I'll definitely be going back in and smoothing out the colors and using more of the Uncharted Mariner. Okay, now let's go ahead and grab some Crackling Campfire. Get a bit of ink on there and add it. Oh, that is quite the punch of color. That is really vibrant. I like it. Okay. Pretty good. And over here. That is looking great. So the next thing that I'm going to do will be to go back in with some of the Uncharted Mariner. All right, let's grab a little bit more of this just so we can smooth out some of those edges. Just want to get those transitions as smooth as possible. I think I'll need a little bit more from all the colors, but if we just keep blending it in, we should get a nice transition. Okay, better. Now a little bit more Vintage Photo. Good. I definitely wanted to get a little bit of a grungy background for the first one that we are working on. All right, now I want to bring back some of that bright Crackling Campfire. Just a little bit of that, and there we go. Now I'm getting the blend that I wanted. That's good. I really love that Crackling Campfire, especially paired with Uncharted Mariner. I'm trying to explore a few color combos that are classics to me and a few others that are a little bit more unusual that I typically wouldn't use together. This is not one of my regular go-to color combos, so it's definitely fun to play around with different inky combinations. Okay, we have our blended background, and now we're going to add a few water drips. Let's go ahead and zoom in just a little bit here. Make sure that's focused. Good. Now, just taking the Distress Sprayer, I'm going to slow squeeze on the trigger, and we're going to get some water droplets. Just like that. Don't need too many, but a few for some added interest. There we go. Pretty good. We'll be back in just a moment after I dry this off. Here is our finished blend with water droplets. An easy and fun technique, and there are so many different color combinations to explore. Okay, let's move on to our next technique. The next thing that we're going to be trying out will be some ink dip technique. This is one of my absolute favorite techniques, and it's the very first one that I ever learned during a live Tim Holtz demo. So the colors that I'm going to be using for the ink dip technique are going to be mustard seed, mermaid lagoon, and picked raspberry. This is my all-time favorite color combination of distress ink. This leads to a fun rainbow-filled background. And now that we have the medium matte craft matte, we have got so much more space to play. So this is going to be good. So let's go ahead. We're going to smush down some ink, and then we will start to dip and dry. Okay, that looks good. Oh, I love these colors, and I find this technique to be magical every time. You're never going to get the same effect twice, and it is always beautiful. Okay. So we will do our first dip together, and then I will put this on fast forward as we start building some fun, fabulous inky layers. As you can see, we are spritzing very nicely over the surface where the ink is. We want to have plenty of water droplets so that our ink will flow and move on the paper. As for our substrate, I am using the smooth side of some Distress watercolor cardstock. And now let's go ahead and pull our first print. Taking that, smushing it down, and lifting up. There we go. We've already got a beautiful start. So let's go ahead and put this on fast forward as we build up our inky layers. Here is our completed backdrop, and look at all those wonderful layers of rainbow color goodness. So fun. That is going to make a fantastic backdrop for a creation. Okay, let's set this one aside. Next, we're going to jump into a little bit of Ideology ephemera. These ephemera packs are awesome. There are so many pieces in here, but sometimes we want a little bit more vintage flair. So let's go ahead and pull out one of these pieces and add a little bit to it. I'm going to go for one of the larger pieces. For this piece of ephemera, I want to do a little bit of tinting around the edges, kind of to add a little bit of frame here. Now this is a lovely floral piece, and noticing the colors, we have almost a little bit of a pink going on in the background, and I'd like to kind of take advantage of that. So the color we're going to bring in is saltwater taffy. Now, very simply, we're just going to take a blending brush, get some ink, and we're going to gently bring in a little bit of ink around the edges. Now, I'm noticing this paper is fairly absorbent, and I'm trying to go really, really light here. So that's interesting. Every substrate is going to be a little bit different, and you kind of have to just play and experiment to find out what is going to work best. So we're just going to go all the way around. We're just adding in that little bit of hazy color. Kind of going stronger at the edges and then trying to fade it out as we get closer to the focal point here. Okay. All in all, not bad. And I'm having a really, really light touch right now. So I'm hoping that this is going to blend in very nicely. Okay, it looks like I want to do a little bit more around the top. Just going to feather that in very gently. Ooh, that is looking good. Okay, just going back, trying to smooth things out. Very good. Okay, I would call this done. So this is just a little bit of tinting, a little bit of adding color to a piece of ephemera. Now, if we want to take it a step even further, we can even go in with a few water droplets to give it a more aged look. Why not? Water droplets look very cool. Okay, pretty good. And I'll just go ahead and dry this off. All right, pretty good. Definitely glad I added in those little drip drops. Always a fun addition. Now, moving on, the next thing we're going to be inking with a stencil. We're going to pull in this new stencil, Brushed Arches, and that is THS 168. So I'm just going to put that directly over the top, and I'm going to grab a little bit of washi tape just to hold this in place. Not really necessary. Could grab some media grip, but it happens to be on the other side of the room right now, so we're just going to go ahead and work like this. Now, when working with a stencil, we have options. We could go in with more dome foam, or we can go in with some of the Tim Holtz Distress brushes. In this case, I would like to use the Distress brushes because they're going to give us more detail on this tag. So we're just going to adjust our tag, and then grab a brush and start adding color. And now the colors that I want to add are going to be Salty Ocean, Prize Ribbon, Peacock Feathers, and Salvaged Patina. So I'm just going to set my inks up and grab the brushes, and then we start stenciling. So here are the brushes, and I've got these color coded. I used a bit of Sharpie marker on here to give a set color to each of the brushes. All right, let's go ahead and pull this open. We need the blue and the green. Okay, now let's go ahead and add some color. So all I'm going to do will be to pick up a little bit of the ink. I'm going to start at the top with Salvage Patina, move into Peacock Feathers, Prize Ribbon, and then Salty Ocean. Now with these, you have a choice. You can have this all the way down so the bristles are pretty floppy, or you can bring this up high and have the bristles more compact. I like to start compact in order to pick up ink. Then I will bring the neck of the blending brush down in order to spread the ink better once we're working on the stencil. Okay, so we've got that, and now let's go ahead and add our ink. I really like the blending brushes because they give a much softer look when stenciling, and they can get into more of the detailed areas in our stencils. Okay, so still adding some ink. Looks like I have a little bit of leftover green on here. That's okay. I'm just going to end up with a little bit darker shade of Salvage Patina. Okay, I'll just add that in here. Not bad. All right, now we're switching over to Peacock Feathers. So again, I'm just going to take this, bring the neck down a little bit, and really smush this into the ink pad so we get a good pickup of ink. And I'm just going to take that and blend it in. Ooh, Peacock Feathers is absolutely gorgeous. I love that rich color. So that is going to make a nice blend. And I'm just going to kind of feather it out at the edges before we transition into our next color. Okay, that looks good. Let's set those aside. Now, let's go for some prize ribbon. So I'm going to switch brushes here. This was my greenish blue brush. So we'll just cap that up and now switch to the blue one. So again, pushing the little neck down and picking up some ink. Pretty good. And blending it in. Okay, we're getting a lovely gradient here. That is good, but I would like to darken that up, so we will add some more ink. Pretty good. Okay, time for the last one, and I'm just going to quickly brush this off on a cloth to get rid of some of the extra pigment. And now let's go in with some Salty Ocean. Okay, ink, brush, Oh, stencil came a little unaligned. That's okay. We can easily line that back up. That looks good. And, whoa, there we go. Absolutely loving that transition. That is good. Okay, and here is our stenciling. We've got some lovely detail here from the blending brush, and we ended up with a beautiful inky gradient. All right, we'll set that aside and moved on to our next technique. Now, the next technique is going to involve a stencil and some water. We're going to be working on a ghosting technique. So let's just clean the surface down. I love this. This is so easy to clean. And we're going to pull in another tag. This time, we're going to try this technique with two different sizes of tags. We've got the size 5 and we also have a size 8. We're going to start with the size 5. For the size 5, I want some Uncharted Mariner. Oh, let's see here. Maybe some chipped sapphire and a dash of Dusty Concord. Excellent. So we're going to be going in with some dome foam to give ourselves a foundation, and then we will look at the ghosting technique. All right, I'm going to start with some Dusty Concord, and we'll go from there. So again, we're just going to do a pretty straightforward blend. I'm just going to do a basic gradient. Okay, good. Now let's go for the chipped sapphire. There we go. Ooh, that is a really intense color. I love it. Okay, I do want to darken up the purple again. Let's add a little bit more to that Dusty Concord. You'll see why I'm going with such a dark background in a moment. All right, last color. Let's throw in a dash of Uncharted Mariner. Okay, and I'm just going to set the ink pad here so I don't smudge anything. Good. And we want to layer on the Uncharted Mariner pretty darkly. That looks good. Excellent. We've got a nicely blended tag now to work with. All right, moving aside the inks. Now I'm pulling in an older stencil set, but this is a good one. We're going to be playing with Moon Mask. So, to do this technique, we need a stencil. We've got the Moon Mask. I'm going to move this aside for a moment, and we're going to spritz the back of the stencil. We want to make sure that there are plenty of water droplets on this. Then we're going to put the stencil onto our substrate and then put a paper towel over the top. Okay, just making sure we've got plenty of water on this. That's good. We're going to take our stencil, quickly wipe up our space. Okay, bring in the tag and stick this down. Now we take the paper towel, go right over the top, blot up any of the extra water. Okay, just tapping this, trying to make sure that our water's where it should be. And we should be getting a very nice impression. Okay, let's lift and see what we get. All right, that looks good. It's going to look even better in just a moment after we dry this off. And here is our ghostly image. We've got a perfect impression of a moon. That is just too cool. So fun. Okay, setting that aside, now we're going to try the same thing with a larger stencil. And this time we're going to be using a combination of saltwater taffy, twisted citron, tumbled glass, and a little bit of picked raspberry. So let's go ahead and add some color. Let's see. I'm going to start with the blue. I need to wipe off this so that I can get a fresh start with the ink pad. Sometimes the darker colors you do need to do a little bit of cleaning before dipping into a lighter colored pad. Otherwise the darker color could overwhelm the color that you're trying to pick up. But there won't be any cross-contamination between pads, which is absolutely awesome. Okay, let's get some tumbled glass. And we'll blend that on. Ooh, that is such a pretty color. Love it. kind of going to go around the edges. Good. That'll work. And now let's go in with some of the picked raspberry. Just going to do a little bit here and there. This is interesting. Maybe I won't do the twisted citron. Maybe we'll just work with these 3 colors and see what happens. Okay. Now I'm going to try to wipe this one off. Make sure that I get a good color with the saltwater taffy. So we'll go ahead and dab some of that up and add that to our tag. Ooh, that is making a very lovely blend. That is cool. All right, looks like I need a little bit more of the picked raspberry. Just trying to blend this in so we get a really interesting color combo. Not bad. I think I'd like to go back with a little bit more of the tumbled glass. Okay, just want to bring some of that back in along the edges. Excellent. Okay. Pretty good. Now let's go ahead and try the ghosting technique with a larger sized stencil. For this stencil, we are going to be using the set THS 162, and this has beautiful roses and vines on it. So let's go ahead and line this up. Let's see where it's going to look good, somewhere around there. Okay, and we'll flip this over. We'll add our water. Now the one difference with this is that I want to dab off some of the extra water. If we just leave the water on here, we will end up with a frame around our flowers, and I do not want a frame. I'd like something a little bit more organic. So we're just going to dab around the edges, pick up that extra water, and then get our impress it. Okay, so I'm just using some paper towel to pick up that extra. Okay. Pretty good. Just keep dabbing a little bit here and there. Almost good. All right, let's try that and see how it works. And again, need to do a quick mop up. Okay, now let's turn this over and place it down. So again, I will put a piece of dry paper towel over the top, absorb any of the extra water, quickly smoosh that off. Take that off and let's see what we've got. This should be interesting. Okay. Ooh, that looks good. Be back in a moment after we dry this off. And here is the finished tag. Okay, the roses came out absolutely beautiful. This definitely happy. All right, let's move on to our next technique. Next, we are going to be stamping with Distress Ink, and to do that, of course, I'm bringing in the Tim Holtz stamping platform. And the stamp set we're going to be stamping with is Baroque CMS 400. I love these stamps. There's so much detail on them. That is going to make a lovely piece. So we're going to be working with this one, and we're going to be stamping with this stamp set in 2 ways. So first, let's open the stamp thing. And we're going to place our stamp down, making sure that it is in a good spot. And now we need our tag. So with the tag, we're just going to take that, place it down, and we will add the magnets. Okay, just double checking that everything will fit nicely. It looks pretty good. Okay, just close that back. Now, the ink that we're going to be using is the Distress DIY pad. I love the rainbow pad, and Tim has these amazing DIY pads where you can create your own color palette, and that is just really, really fun. So let's take this. As you can see, we've got a really pretty rainbow gradient in here, and I'm going to stamp the stamp with the ink. So Pretty simple. We take the stamp, we take the ink, and we ink. Okay, pretty good. We've got ink. Now we'll go ahead and stamp. So, placing the lid down, applying good firm pressure. And the nice thing is, if we don't get a really good impression on this round, we can always go back and stamp again. That is the good thing. Let's see what we have. Oh, that looks great. I am very happy with this. Now, I'm going to add a second step because I'd like to grunge this up a little bit. But first, we are going to clean off our stamp, and I'm going to create a resist with some embossing powder. And then we're going to ink over the top of our rainbow design without losing any of that vibrant detail. Okay, clean stamp. Next, I'm going to need some embossing ink. We're still in the Distress Ink family, so that is all very, very good. Okay, we'll just quickly add that on here. Then we'll stamp over our image and add the embossing powder. So I'm just taking this and we're just quickly tapping across the stamp. So just little taps, just so that we make sure we've got good coverage with the ink, because this is going to allow us to apply that next layer that's going to act as a resist. And that is going to look really, really cool, especially when we start to get grungy. And it will protect our beautiful rainbow flourish. Okay. I think I'm happy with that. I'm seeing a good sheen of ink on here. So I'm just going to take that, put the lid down, stamp with purpose, and off to the side I've got some paper ready to catch our embossing powder. Good. Now we'll just take the tag, just removing the magnets. Excellent. Putting that there. We have our paper. I'm going to just slip that right under here. We've got our embossing powder. This is the clear Ranger embossing powder. We'll just quickly sprinkle. Just like that. Should be good. Ooh, it's a little chunky. It's a bit humid today. Okay, and we'll just tip the excess onto the paper. Very good. Give it a little tap. Make sure we don't have any extra in places we don't want it. All right. You can see that we've got embossing powder on here. Let's set the tag aside for a moment. We'll take our extra, of course, and gently put that right back into the jar for next time. Good. Setting our paper aside, putting the lid back on. All right, back in a moment after we emboss. And here is the embossed tag. As you can see, we now have a beautiful shiny layer over our ink. Next, we're going to do a quick ink dip technique to see that lovely resist pop even more. So first of all, I'm putting down some vintage photo, and we're also going to be adding some of the new lost shadow. That should be a lovely combination for us to work with. And you know what? I also want to throw in a teeny tiny dash of prize ribbon. So we'll just squiggle a little bit right here. Very good. Now, of course, we need to spritz so that we have lovely water droplets. Very good. Now I'm going to dip and dry, and we're going to see how that resist works. So let's go ahead and put this part on fast forward. And here is our resist tag. We used a DIY rainbow ink pad on this beautiful Baroque flourish. Then we sealed it with some embossing powder, and then we added more distress ink around the background to make it more grungy. So fun, great backdrop, Really cool technique. All right, moving on to the next thing. Speaking of resist, we also have a fun product known as Distress Microglaze. And this works beautifully with Distress inks. And it's a whole nother way to feature Distress ink when we are creating. So to start with, we are going to need a couple of stencils. I'm going to go ahead and pull from this stash over here. Let's see. Oh, I see two that I definitely want to use. All right, let's take those from here. These two will be good. And oh, I'm looking for another one of the new ones, the splotchy paint ones. Where did that end up? Oh, wait, this will work just as well. These are kind of some mixed media marks. That will be perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and set the stencil stack aside. So first things first, we're going to be using the microglaze, and we're going to apply that first to our tag. We're going to stencil a little bit of that on, and then we will see where things go from there. I love this big stencil here. This is THS 163. And we're going to put that right here, and that's going to be a really good place for us to start. Okay, taking the microglaze, getting a little bit out of here, and we're going to apply it. Now, this technique is all about building up layers to see the previous layers beneath it. So, we've got this, we've applied it, and now we need to add some ink to this. And to do that, we're going to be doing the ink dip technique as we move along. So to start with, I want to start with a base of saltwater taffy and mustard seed. I want to do contrasting colors, so the first set of colors is going to be very bright. Okay, let's go ahead. I'm going to spritz, and we'll start dipping and dripping. Okay. Okay, good start right here, and I'll add a little bit more, just dropping that on my fingers, and we can definitely see where the resist is resisting. So pretty darn cool. And to get this to move around a little bit more, I will spritz it with the Distress sprayer, just so that we can clearly see where everything is. And now we'll give this a good dry. So this is our first layer using the microglaze resist with ink dipping. So we're going to go ahead and put this on fast forward as we build another few layers. I'd like to use at least 2 more stencil sets to build up some interesting layers. And we will use contrasting colors with each layer. The next layer I'm going to focus on is going to be pink and purple, and after I think we'll move into the blues. All right, let's go ahead and put this on fast forward. And here's the completed tag using the microglaze distress technique. We have layered up with microglaze stencils and distress inks to get this really cool tag, and we can see all of the different layers that we have added. So that was super fun. Let's set that aside and move on to the next technique. For the next technique, we're going to be doing some distress watercolor stamping. So we're going to bring back stamping platform, and I'm going to be using the same stamp. This is a really good one, so why not use it twice? I'm going to give the stamp a quick wipe since we last used embossing ink on it, and we will add another tag. I can go right here. I'm just going to make sure everything's nicely aligned. Okay, looks good. And we'll put down a couple of magnets. Now, for this technique, I'm going to be going in again with 3 of my favorite colors. We're going to do Mermaid Lagoon, Mustard Seed, and a dash of Picked Raspberry. So this time we're going to be a little haphazard with the way we stamp. And I'm going to start with the yellow because it is the lightest color here. And it will be the most forgiving if I overlap with other colors. I want to do like a splotchy rainbow pattern. So then we'll go in with some picked raspberry. Just splash that here and there. If we overlap, that is totally okay. It's actually going to be really good if we do some overlap. And last but not least, we will now add some touches of Mermaid Lagoon. Just going to fill in the blanks here with that color. It should be pretty good. Okay, over here and right there. Ooh, this is going to look awesome. Okay, so we now have that down. Next, we need to give this a little spritz. Not a whole lot, but enough so we're going to get a nice juicy watercolor effect. Now I'm going to stamp twice. We're going to do 2 generations of stamping with this one. The first generation is going to look really, really super watery, and the second one, well, we'll see. Each generation looks a little bit different, and the effect is definitely worth it. Okay, so taking this, closing the platform, stamping down, good firm pressure, and let's see what we got. Ooh, that looks great. So I'm going to let this be. I'm going to just take this right out, set that aside, and we're going to go in for our second generation stamp. All right, putting down the tag, adding the magnets, and I'm going to spritz again just to make sure that all the ink is still flowing and fluid. Okay, closing the platform and going for the second generation. All right, pressing that down. Good firm pressure. Let's see what we got. Oh yeah, that worked very nicely. So let's take this out of the platform. I'm going to quickly wipe down our stamp. I probably could get at least 3, maybe 4 generations, but right now I just want to do a comparison between generation 1 and number 2. All right, let's move the stamping platform out of here, set that aside, and bring back our first generation stamped image. And here they are. The detail is wonderful. This one is a little bit more watery, and our colors have definitely run together. Here it seems like we have a little bit more detail, but also a little bit more blend. It is still a cool effect either way, and these will be fun pieces to cut up with dies or to potentially use in a background. Okay, that covers all of our major techniques. Now let's take a look back at all of the items that we have created. So we have our blending and ink drip, we've got ink dip, we have tinting, stenciling, ghosting with water on 2 different tags, resist with embossing, resist with a microglaze, and we have some watercolor stamping. What a fun variety of techniques. Thank you so much for joining me here today at the Crafty Corner to explore all of this wonderful inky fun. And don't forget to check out my teammates' posts over at the Funkie Junkie Inspiration Avenue. And until next time, happy crafting!